That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. We are talking Secret Invasion Episode 5. My name is Jordan, and with me as always on this journey is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It's going good. Going good. We're talking Episode 5, which is called Harvest. The little synopsis here is Fury gathers his allies, Gravik deals with unrest. So it's the most wordy one we've got since week one.
We got two sentences.
Yep, two sentences, which is the longest amount of sentences we've gotten. But words, week one is still the the longest. But yeah, I kind of like when shows do this, when they do their titles have all been like one episode, or like one word. So far we've had Resurrection, Promises, Betrayed, Beloved, and now Harvest. And this was directed by Ali Salim and written by Michael Bahim and Brian Tucker. Premiered July 19th, 2023 on Disney Plus. And we're just one episode left. Casey, your thoughts, quick thoughts, your general thoughts on episode 5 before we dig in.
It picked up this episode. We got some returns, some answers. And who was on the phone call at the end?
Oh, I think it's pretty obvious who it is, actually. I just think it's Gravik. I just think he's calling Gravik saying, let's end this. Like, I got your thing that you want, and we're going to go meet, and that's going to be what I would assume is all of episode 6, is this meeting with Gravik and this kind of like final showdown. But yeah, so we even get a reference to Winter Soldier here. It's kind of one of the things I was thinking of is when Olivia Colman's character says, when they're at the grave, she's like, don't you have another one of these? Referring to at the end of Winter Soldier when he has a fake tombstone.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have them all over the place.
Speaking of Olivia Colman, I love that woman.
Oh, she was so good in this episode once again. She's been like the highlight of the show for me, I think.
I don't know why. Just, she is a badass in this show, right? Obviously, she's MI6 or whatever. She's high up there, and she's known Fury for a long time. We talked about it before. I think her grandfather was in the original Captain America, so
yeah,
like that runs in her blood, right? And everything. But like I said before, it's like I just get this kind of grandmotherly Mary Poppins vibe off of her, but she's such a badass with some of the things she does.
Mm-hmm.
And it just tickles me, and I don't know why. But I love that woman, and I love that character, and I would love to see more of her in some way, shape, or form.
She's really taken off lately, and where I know her from is a show I watched about 10 to 12 years ago, which was Peep Show on, it was a British show, Peep Show. And what was interesting about Peep Show is that it followed two characters, Mark and Jez, and they would always have like these, the way it was shot was actually as if you were looking through their eyes. So if you saw the other character, it was from like Mark's perspective, like shooting like his eyes on there that way. And it was a comedy show, and Olivia Colman played like a person that one of the characters really was into, and they started dating at some point, but she was really good in that. And this is like just a totally different vibe of a show, but she's pulling it off like so well. I know some people, I think, seen her in The Crown. I think she's in now as well. But yeah, so if anybody's watched Peep Show, Back when it was on Netflix, it was a British show. It was really good. But that was, yeah. Nowadays, people know her from like, oh yeah, she was in Murder on the Orient Express, the newer one.
Really?
She was in Hot Fuzz.
Really?
Yeah, I don't remember her in those, but
I mean, in all fairness, she might have been, but I didn't know who she was, so I wouldn't have been able to really see or recognize her. But the one thing I'll say, with all of these shows that I've watched, all these Marvel shows I've watched on Disney so far, one of the side characters has always stood out and made the show more enjoyable. When we saw WandaVision, it was Agatha. And Loki was Alligator Loki. I don't know why. Just the fact that there's an Alligator Loki out there just tickled me.
I liked classic Loki, the old Loki, by Richard Grant. I think he did a really good job too in that show.
But there's always been like one side character that has stepped up, and just with her in this, and
Madison and She-Hulk, right?
Yeah, I forgot about She-Hulk. Madison, and her best friend there was also awesome. But so like when she, I saw her name in the credits. We'll get to the credits in a second. I saw her name in the credits and I was like, oh, okay, she's going to be in this episode. Cool. When she went busting into whoever's office it was,
just shoots him in the leg.
She's just acting like she had no idea that like they just showed Nick Fury shooting Hill, around the world or whatever, right? Yeah. Then she goes up to him, pulls a gun, she shoots him in the leg, and she has a smile on her face while all this is going on. And then everybody busts in, and then that's when she reveals that guy's a Skrull, right? And so everybody else
they're kind of like, what the hell to her, right? And then she's like, well, look at like his wound here, and it's like turning green.
He's turning into a Skrull, and she's like, since the British government really doesn't have a policy on killing Skrulls, you might want to tell me what I need to know before I enact my policy.
Yeah.
Which
I love that too. When the guy's like, do you really think there are Skrulls here? And she's just like, bam.
She just, I don't know. I know this is going to sound silly to a lot of people. That character has tickled me so much. And it's one of those, I wish we could see more. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing like a British spy version, like instead of Nick Fury, like her, like, something on her side. But
there's British heroes too. Like there's Captain Britain, there's Union Jack. There are British heroes that they could do a whole show around.
We don't need all that. We just need Olivia Colman. I'm good.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, she'd be the head of the show. She'd be like the Agent M in James Bond, and sending them out do their stuff. But yeah, I know I really enjoyed that. Also, when she's meeting with the doctors, like Dr. Dalton.
Oh, that was great.
Yes, and she's like, she says something, and the guy's like, well, what are you talking about? She's like, no, I'm talking about the guy who has the gun pressed to your neck.
Yeah, who's got the silencer pressed to the back of your skull right now. And he just walks in, and the thing was, like, the dude had a loaded shotgun and pointed at her, and she's just like, whatever.
And she still had all control in that situation.
And then after that, so, okay, they get all the information she needs. She obviously knew what she was talking about, knew what she wanted. So the guy's wife or whatever gives her whatever information. She tells them they're going to have to torch the lab, right? Okay, cool. Maybe it was me. The CGI on that fire didn't look the best. Like, it was one of those. It was one of those where as soon as they threw the Molotov cocktail in there and you saw the fire come up, it was one of those like, oh, obviously they're not going to, torch it for real. But it was one of those like, you could have spent like an extra $5 on that CGI. But he pulls out a gun. He grabs his wife and he's like, "I'll kill her." And she just
unflinchingly, she just
doesn't
shoots
have
him.
a care in the world. Well, even I thought she was just gonna be like, "Okay, I got all the information I need from her. Go ahead, kill her." Like she doesn't serve me any purpose. Which it wouldn't have surprised me if she would have said that. But then she just was like, "Okay," and then just put a bullet in his head.
Yeah, she was the highlight of the episode for me. Really enjoyed her. I like when we started the episode too. We had Fury getting Ritson to the hospital, and then I love how he just pulls up a chair and just is like, "All right, they won't let me back there. I'm just gonna guard like right here." Um,
Well, yeah, because
but-
he knew eventually
yeah.
they were gonna show up.
right, right. But it doesn't last too long, right? Rhodey, not Rhodey, comes up and
Scrody.
yeah, Scrody, there you go. Comes up and says, I just leaked the footage of you killing Maria Hill pretty much. And that leaves Fury on a global watch list. And kind of sends Fury to go do his own thing. He's going to meet up with Gaia, and then also he gets his meeting with Olivia Colman's character, Fallsworth. And I liked them talking too. I love these two together, like when Olivia Colman's with Sam Jackson, because she was the one that was kind of worried about Fury not being like himself or like his old self. And when he drops the news that Rhodey is a Skrull, and she's like, really? He's like, you thought I was the one out of this. Oh, I just love that because
Dude,
yeah.
Where is all the technology they have? So like, we'll skip ahead here. So at some point he gets on a private plane. He goes to Finland, right? He has a passport, which how all these in all these spy movies and stuff, they managed to break into the passport agency's databases and add these random people or whatever. But okay, they're spies. Whatever. They can do that. And it's just some old Finnish dude. And I was like, really? That's Nick Fury? Like, I knew it was Fury, right? But what they call it, the bridal veil technology, where it just, basically hits a button and it gives him a new face.
Yeah, it's kind of like it happened in Winter Soldier. Yeah, like Black Widow uses it a lot in Winter Soldier to infiltrate. But yeah, it's not like I'm guessing it doesn't change his hands though, right? So like I'm guessing he just
I think he had gloves on though.
Yeah, that's right. He had gloves.
I mean, it was Finland and it looked fairly cold, so wearing gloves and heavy coat and everything, you can hide everything else.
I kind of figured it was him. It was really a cool moment. I like those mask things that they have that I guess I buy it more than like, look, we were just talking off air that I was watching the Mission Impossible movies recently, the first three.
Yeah, I got the Mission Impossible there too.
Yeah, and with those though, like it's sillier in the Mission Impossible movies because like it's not tech, it's just like this rubbery mask they put over themselves. And like in the first movie, you're introduced to this whole thing where they're trying to get intel from some guy. And then
in the very beginning?
Yeah, he walks out of the thing and he just rips off his face and it's Tom Cruise. And I'm like, that's silly. I was like, that's a little silly. Now, it was 1996, but they've done that in all three movies so far. But like the third one did it the best because it showed how they do it. And I was like, okay, I can buy that more. But in like the second one, they do another silly moment where they're constantly changing faces, and like the bad guy's dressed up as Tom Cruise at one point and Tom Cruise is dressed up as the bad guy at one point, and I'm like, what? But like I buy it more on this thing when it's just a tech thing that they can like rip off.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes more sense. But I was just thinking about it because I was watching these like maybe a couple days apart, and I was like, I don't buy this as much as I do in Secret Invasion. But
that was the technology at the time.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm trying to find. I think somebody said that there was a character in Black Widow that showed up in this.
Oh, the guy from the plane. I think.
Yeah. I've watched Black Widow like twice. I did not catch this at all until I saw people talking about it because I didn't think that character was that memorable. I
He
guess.
really wasn't. I saw something earlier this week too. Was like, oh, call it like a character from a earlier movie, and I was like, okay. And I scrolled through it, but I couldn't understand who they were talking about. And then when I saw it this morning, and I was like, oh, okay, that's the guy who got Black Widow her plane or whatever.
Yeah, his name is Mason. I had to look up his name, but yeah, and I knew that they wanted us to remember this guy because the way they kind of introduced him in the show and kind of like had him just give a line or two, I was like, we're supposed to know who this is, but I totally blanked on this.
Had I not seen that thing earlier this week, I wouldn't have recognized him at all either.
Yeah,
It'd have just been some random dude who works with spooks and spies and stuff and gets some stuff they need. That's all I would have thought of.
Yeah, I quite like this though. I like that they were able to bring something like this because Black Widow does have that crossover with Fury where it's more spy-ish at stuff than like other normal superhero shows. It's not like look, if this was someone else doing this at some point, it might have been Wong in the front, right? Like Wong's everywhere right now. It might be Wong coming out and be like, Fury.
Well, plus he's the Sorcerer Supreme, so he can be anywhere he needs to be.
Yeah. But no, I quite like this, even though I didn't catch it right away, because I don't think it's that big of a deal that like if you don't catch it, it's like whatever. But it does make the universe feel, I guess, a little bit more connected at times. But yeah, I totally missed it.
Also, she called on him, I think, when she came back between after Winter Soldier and that period where after Winter Soldier, Civil War, after Civil War, where, you know, they all went their separate ways, and then before Infinity War.
Yeah, because that's when Black Widow takes place, is sometime between Civil War and Infinity War.
Because then she's getting on like a plane or something to go back, which leads into Infinity War, I think.
Right.
Or leads into her showing up in Infinity War. So and that was what, 2015?
Civil War is 2016, Infinity War is 2018, so it takes place somewhere between those 2 years.
16, somewhere in that range?
Yeah.
Something like that? So we're looking at 7-8 years, maybe somewhere that amount of time. I guess he still has, you know, a way to get private jets and various things. I mean,
yeah, crazy though. Only 2 years since Black Widow released, which released in 2021.
Man, forgot about that.
Yeah, that's what's crazy is like we had nothing in 2020 because of COVID, and then since then we've actually gotten quite a lot since 2021. Yeah, so I guess that's part of the reason. Like what I used to do is I used to rewatch these movies before each movie released.
Oh Jesus!
You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, if there was like Infinity War, I watched all the movies before Infinity War, and then before Ant-Man came out, I watched like all of them before Ant-Man or whatever. Or I would pick and choose and be like, I'll watch just the Ant-Man ones before the next Ant-Man type thing. But now that we have the shows too, I have stopped doing that because there's just so much stuff.
Too much to do.
Yeah, so like I haven't really rewatched any of the shows yet, and I haven't, because by the time that I'm done a show, like we're going to be going right into Loki in like less than 2 months. Or about 2 months by the time we're done this. So it's like I don't have enough time to really revisit the stuff as much as I would like, or else that's why I probably would have noticed this guy. You know, but oh well. He got Fury onto a plane to get him to meet Fallsworth. Yeah, so the guy that she exposed as a Skrull was Derek Weatherby. Such a British name.
Yeah, that is the most British name.
But yeah, so their whole plan, right, is to get Ritson to authorize bombing the Russian New Skrullos because they want to implicate Russia as Skrull sympathizers and then they're hoping that this will cause Russia to then retaliate.
Oh, there's no
On
hoping.
the US.
You're having a strike on Russian soil,
Yeah, yeah.
which is gonna. I mean, there's no way they're not gonna. Whoever the Russian president is, which I'm surprised we haven't seen him in this. At least heard of a name or like something. Maybe they've shown a picture of him in this in one of the newscasts I haven't
don't
seen,
know.
but at least to have an idea of who's in charge of Russia in this universe.
And so I guess this is the question I have for you. I do want to ask this question before we move on. Ritson is like knocked out, and before Fury leaves and they're wheeling him back, he says, "Don't trust Rhodes," right?
Yeah.
And then Ritson is kind of asking questions of Rhodey when Rhodey is saying like let's authorize this, and he's like, "This will start World War III." Do you think
NATO's
Ritson?
behind us? Everyone's behind us. Blah blah blah.
Do you think Ritson did hear Fury say this, or is it like? Do you think he will have some doubt that Rhodey is Rhodey?
I don't know if he's got because he didn't say he was a Skrull, right? So
Right.
he just said don't trust him. This may be one of those like subconscious things where he'll hear, you find out he heard him with everything going on. Maybe he'll recollect he didn't see Rhodey like coming to his aid when all this was happening. Tie into the fact he seemed at least a little perturbed that Rhodes was drinking before
Yeah,
the convoy
you
in
really
last episode.
called him out on that. Yeah,
Yeah, so maybe when you add all of that together, there'll be enough or something in there that can give him a little reason to not necessarily trust Rhodes because something seems off. Maybe he won't be able to put it together, but there'll be enough in his brain to be like, something's off with Rhodes right now, and I don't know what it is. And he seems to be pushing hard to start World War III, and that just seems odd.
yeah. I mean, Rhodey, I don't think has ever been like a warmongerer as much as his character's name is War Machine. So I do think that might be enough to kind of tip them off of like, why are you pushing so hard for the end of the world right now?
Speaking of which, Iron Man came out in 2008, correct?
Yep.
So 15 years away. All right. I can speak to the Army side of this. I don't know about the Air Force and how their promotion works. I think he was still a lieutenant colonel. Maybe he was a major when he first started in Iron Man, when we first saw him. I think he was a lieutenant colonel, right? Still fairly high ranking, right? Makes good living. I get that. It's been 15 years. He has fought many battles for the United States, including some for the world. How is this dude not a general yet? What the hell is going on? And I'm not even joking about that.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Like, at least for the Army, they have when they look at promotion, up until a certain point, like promotions are done administratively, kind of, and then after that, like for the Army, once you're going from full bird colonel to 1-star general, you have to be recommended, and Congress has to approve it. Blah blah blah. I don't know. The Air Force probably works the same way. I don't know for sure, but
It is actually going to be longer than 15 years too, because Endgame ended in 2023 because it released. Well, Infinity War was 2018, and then you have the 5 years after the snap, which would put us at this year.
Jesus, yeah.
So it's actually been maybe an extra 3 years or so.
Yeah, I forgot about that quote unquote 5-year gap. But I'm just saying, like, how has he not been promoted? Like,
yeah,
I
guess
same rank. This is not.
I'm trying to Google too to see if he has bumped up any ranks between the first one and this one, and I don't think he has. I guess you could say it was a bit of an increase in rank when he became War Machine. It was a little different, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know when he kind of stalled, I guess.
Okay, there's a Reddit post here. Why was Rose never promoted to general? And this was from 4 years ago. Yeah, there's a whole thread on this. Like, yeah, why hasn't he been promoted?
Is there any consensus there? Is it just like,
Maybe because he's working with the Avengers and he's still active duty, but it's kind of weird.
yeah,
And
it
he
could
may
be
be in
that.
a liaison thing, but one of them right here makes sense. Thanks, because Tony was a massive pain in the ass for the U.S. government. I doubt they want to give even more power to someone so friendly to Tony in the Avengers. I get that.
But they'll give him the War Machine armor.
4 years ago, because he just couldn't walk it off.
That's awful. He can walk it off now.
Yeah, but there's a thread on that. So okay, it wasn't just me that's sitting there wondering that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, I would hope that maybe there's something in there, and I don't know. Like, I also wonder if he says no to Rhodes, what's gonna happen? Is Rhodes gonna kill him and say he succumbed to his injuries? You know,
Well, do they have to do that? Can he become Ritson instead, and we kind of hide Ritson's body or something? Like, is there a way for Rhodes, fake Rhodes, to just become, make his appearance Ritson and then authorize it himself? Which then maybe is why Ritson ends up not becoming the president for whenever the strikes are over and we finish filming and get the new Captain America movie. But
well, here's something we have to think of too. What is it? Armor Wars?
yes,
We have coming out in a couple years. So
and that was changed. That was changed from a show to a movie, so it's going to be a movie focused on Rhodes.
So at some point, he's got to get released or free from the Skrulls and go back to being Rhodes. Right?
I would think this next episode, right? Like, I feel like we have to wrap up. Like, they're gonna, instead of authorizing the nuke on New Skrullos, where all of those people are, by the way, like Everett Ross and
yeah,
all of them, they're gonna have to,
that...
they're gonna have to free them, and I assume that'll play a part in it. Hopefully, we get to see that. I do hope the next episode's a little longer, because the last two have only been 37 minutes, and I do want, like, we have to have the showdown with Gravik, and then we also have to, I want to see some sort of fallout to this, where it's like, you can even do, like, news broadcasts, stuff like that, where they're like, hey, these people have been freed from the New Skrullos complex in Russia, and we've now learned that blah, 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 blah. If it's going to be on the news, it could just be totally swept under the rug by the political people, too.
Well, not only that, but you have all those people who are Skrulls in all those different places, too.
Yeah, true.
So speaking of which, does Fury get his name cleared?
I think so. So again, this is kind of the downside of having so many projects, is we have trailers for something like The Marvels, which has Nick Fury back on, the sword or saber airbase type thing, and working with the Marvels. And I assume his name is cleared and he's back in his job doing what he needs to do. But again, I just hope we kind of get to see that, and not just like, I don't want it to end abruptly and just be like, well, where we have to think in our mind, like, oh, everything went back to status quo after that. I like maybe 5 minutes of just winding down the story, seeing where Gaia goes after this, seeing Fury maybe go back up to Saber. And I mean, he gets right back into old Nick Fury here, right? In his little mausoleum.
He busts the eye patch out, the leather jacket came out.
The coat is so nice. I love it so much.
We're getting old school Nick Fury here.
I really loved that. And then he hid the harvest, in that tombstone. And from what I understand, this is the DNA of the
Of all,
Avengers.
yeah. So from what he said, when he was talking to Agent, what's her name?
Fallsworth, yep.
Agent Fallsworth. He talked about how the Avengers bled during all these different battles, and there were people who came in and cleaned up and collected their DNA. So,
and Gravik knew about it before he.
Because I think he was one of the people who helped.
Yeah.
Like Fury said, the only people who knew was him and the collectors, and I think Gravik was probably one of the collectors or was working with him or something. So that's how he knew. Gravik went Groot again in this episode. So, I mean, and he made sure to bring up too, even the DNA of Danvers, of Danvers there. So
yeah. So he said the battle for Earth.
I would have to think that would be the last battle with Thanos in Wakanda. Was that in Wakanda? No, it wasn't in Wakanda.
Well, no, the last one was in New York at the Avengers compound in Endgame. But yeah, that's what I guess this is my only question, because I would have thought they said like Battle of New York or something, but Battle of Earth, like, does this give enough time for any of this to really happen? I guess. I
think it does.
For Gravik to really have a falling out with Fury, and Fury to just immediately go from like, oh, I think he like almost immediately goes from Tony's funeral up into space. He doesn't last too long, because like less than 6 months later is Far From Home, where it is Talos as him. So I don't know. I'm just kind of curious on. I guess that's the only way they could say it had all of them, and it explains how they got Groot's DNA at some point
and Danvers, because she's only
she wasn't there then. Yeah,
she would have had to have got. They would have had to got Captain Marvel's DNA either in the 90s when she was still on Earth, a brief minute or two before she left to go in the space at the end of Captain Marvel, right? And then she popped up on Earth a few times at like in Endgame in the beginning, and when she brought Tony and Nebula back, right? And then she was there. She had that little stare down with Thor, which I think might have been at the same time, but she didn't. There was no fighting then. And then she was appearing hologram wise, because she was still out there. She made the comment that, these other planets don't have the Avengers to help them. So she was, during that 5 years, she was still out in space, being Captain Marvel.
Yeah, it has to be that battle.
And then she came back. She came back and fought Thanos, which they didn't show her bleed. But yeah, she fought Thanos for a couple minutes, until he took the Power Stone out and whopped her, and that was it.
Yeah, I guess somewhere in that battle she bled enough to just be collected, but
that was it. She came down. She
busted through the ship, and then
there was the woman power thing, which I hate to, where they had all the different women superheroes try and help get the gauntlet from one side to the other, where they had them all team up, and I think they were helping Spider-Man get the gauntlet from one side to the other. And then she fought Thanos, and like I said, she probably would have won if he didn't pull the Power Stone out and bop her with that thing.
Yeah, because he like headbutts her and she just stands still.
Yeah. And then that was that the last we saw of her?
Yep.
Until
this next movie coming out, yeah.
So I don't know why I went down a rabbit hole the other day, and I ended up watching a bunch of reaction videos from Endgame.
Oh, nice.
Again, like from like the first couple nights it went out where nobody knew what was gonna happen. And so, there's some dude in the back of the theater recording it with his phone. and it was it was like the portal scene where the portals open up. Or first one, when Cap wields Mjolnir,
Oh yeah.
the
Oh my
crowd
god.
goes crazy. Thor's like, I knew it. When the portals open up and everybody comes back, and you see Black Panther come out first with the people from Wakanda and everything. The Avengers assemble moment and everything. Like, the crowd goes crazy. You hear the crowd cheer and everything. And then when Tony does the snap, it was one of those. But I don't know why. I just every now and then I'll get on these weird kicks and I'll look those videos up.
Yeah.
And it kind of just pumps me up for a couple minutes, and then it makes me sad when Tony dies. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what a movie Endgame was. Jeez, so good. I know a lot of people have kind of, I don't know, some people don't like it now, right? I feel like public opinion changes on some of this stuff really quickly. But um, I know a lot of people favor Infinity War, but I actually favor Endgame more. Just the culmination of everything is so
it
good.
is. It went 10, 12. It was a culmination of 10 or 12 years of storytelling. They found a way to weave everything all together. And the best thing was it was a satisfying conclusion.
I love the time heist too. Like just the idea of like going back and revisiting some of the highest moments of the saga and like getting the stones back, and like that is like I've talked before about like Back to the Future being one of my favorite trilogies, my favorite movies, and uh that's why I really like Back to the Future 2 is like they revisit stuff from the first movie and get a different spin on it. And like even in Endgame, they take a movie like Dark World, which was not great, and made it worth the
Thor
whole
got to
thing.
see his mom one
Yeah.
last time. Tony got to see his dad one last time, right? Like those the fact that Tony and Cap made up,
Yes.
right? And you knew for years those things were brewing, and they had their split, but silly lines as he turned into a baby, didn't he? Yeah. And they didn't have to like have that moment where they talked it over, but they just kind of realized like, hey, we need to come together and we need to do this. And the two best things, two things that happened from early in the series, where Tony tells Cap, the best thing from you came out of a lab, and Captain tells Tony, you're never the one to make the sacrifice play. And both of those things came full circle in the end of Endgame. And if Marvel would have decided at that point they were done, like we're not going to make any more movies anymore, I think we've told the only story we can tell. If they would have called it quits, which obviously they're not because it's too much money, but if they would have called it quits at the end of that game, at the end of that movie, it might have been the most satisfying conclusion in cinematic history, because there's no other way to end that.
Right.
And it's one of those, I definitely can see myself going through that Infinity Saga again. And it's just that even as sad as the end of the movie was, it was still great.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a whole day, was probably one day during lockdown or whatever, during COVID, where I just logged off of work because I was working from home, went downstairs, and watched Infinity War and Endgame back to back for the 5 hours, and I was like, this is a perfect day. It was really good. Yeah, not to keep going on about Endgame, but I am glad they continued and kept going. But
Yeah.
what I like about this is that with the phases and stuff is that you can just choose like, I'm gonna watch the Infinity Saga, and I'll rewatch it, whatever. And then you can kind of pause and come back later and be like, now I'm gonna watch, the Multiverse Saga, or whatever. Like, it is very similar to like real comics of like, here's this big event story that you can read, like it weaves through all these other titles, but also culminates, and then we'll build up to another one. And yeah, so I do like that they, because I mean, man, if they hadn't continued and we never got No Way Home, would have been sad.
Okay, I'll concede, and I'll concede too. I'll concede No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness, and what we had to have WandaVision.
Yeah.
Because that was also a great. But see, I was talking with another buddy at work, and I think some of the ones that I've really been into as far as the TV shows have been because I've had connections with those characters. Like I had a connection with Loki because of everything. I had a connection with Wanda and Vision because of everything. I didn't have a connection with She-Hulk, but I found out that I like muscled women from She-Hulk, so that's that. But like, and this, like, I have a connection with Nick Fury, right?
Right.
Because he's been so long. Like, I don't know Miss Marvel, so I just, when that one came along, I was just kind of like, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not good. I just don't have a connection with her, so it's just one of those like.
No, I feel like a lot of people will revisit that show or visit it for the first time after the movie comes out, because I think there will be people that'll be like, "Oh, I enjoyed her in that movie. Oh, there's actually a whole show. Cool."
Which one is the one they're putting on ABC?
Miss Marvel. Yep.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, if Disney's smart, they'll do that before.
Yeah. So they're doing it.
The Marvels come out. So
I think next month, August. So
because what is it, September or October that?
November movie.
November.
Yeah. But yeah, good to get it in front of more people and stuff like that. Which, look, who knows if that's going to continue at some point, because they're talking about maybe selling ABC and stuff. So use it while you can.
Disney?
Yeah. They might be trying to get out of the TV business, so they might sell like FX and all that stuff.
Dude, they just bought all that stuff.
Yeah, but they would just be selling the TV networks. They would still have all like the studios, but yeah, we'll see if they actually do it. But look, I don't like stock market as it is. Like, I feel like it's all just made up stuff as it is. Like, Netflix didn't get the boost they thought they were going to get from the password sharing. They still got like an influx of 6 million more accounts or whatever, but it wasn't enough for the stock market, so their price plummeted. I'm like, this is all just made up. This is all just made up stuff of like, I don't like with Disney. It was always like their prices were like the stock price was going up when they announced Disney Plus and all that stuff, and when it launched and all this stuff. And then once Netflix had a little bit of a crash with their subscribers, then like Disney's price went down because of their subscriber stuff, even though they already told Wall Street it wasn't going to be profitable until next year. So it's just all bogus. It's all made up stuff, but it causes some of these companies to be like, oh, we need to sell like stuff so we can get the stock price back up. And it's lame. There's my diatribe on the stock market. But yeah, so the Harvest is all the DNA of the Avengers. Fury has had this in this tombstone. He grabbed it. He's going to take it to Gravik. This is what Gravik wants. He's going to try to exchange, or I guess he's just going to show up with it and hope that he outsmarts him. And probably, I assume Fury has some sort of plan that will lead to Gravik still not getting the Harvest.
Remember last week when I said, well, we saw Fury's wife again because
yeah, she was with Gaia. Yeah,
Gaia had to bury Talos, which I think this is the first time we've heard, or at least I can remember hearing the Skrull language.
I will have to revisit Miss Captain Marvel, but you
may have heard it before, but I just don't recall it. So I'm not saying it hasn't been heard. I just don't recall it. Which I thought their ceremony for Talos was nice. They have a nice little shootout, and a bunch of people try and kill the two of them, and that doesn't work. Remember last week where I said I think Fury's wife saves him we'll see her one more time, and she's going to save his life and probably sacrifice herself. We might get that next week. She's still around. He's going to meet up with Gravik. So there's always a chance that something will happen and she'll end up sacrificing herself for him, which would be a fitting end because then he definitely wouldn't have a reason to stay on Earth anymore, right? His wife gave up her life for him, and you know, it kind of frees him to go back up in the Saber on the ship there, so that's always a possibility.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I think even if she doesn't, at some point, I do want to see these two meet up again before the end of the show and kind of have some sort of, like I said last week, right? Like one of her whole arguments was like, you never told me you were like leaving. And we do know he's leaving again because he's going to be on the space station in the Marvels. So it's like, I would like for him to kind of make that right and maybe even invite her to go up with him. Maybe they can have their relationship up on the space station, or just telling her at least like, hey, I'm going to be going again. So that way I kind of feel like there's still some unresolved stuff here. Like he said, we're either going to get a divorce or renew our vows. So I would like to kind of know which way they're going with it. But you're right. She might save him. Yeah, well, that was most of the episode. It was kind of short, but it was hot. It was like a hot start.
A lot of violence in this episode,
Mm-hmm.
especially for Disney, especially where Gravik slits the guy's throat.
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
the one scene. I'm not against violence or anything. Like, it doesn't bother me, but for a Disney Plus show, that wasn't something I was really anticipating. You know, bullets in the head, a guy getting his throat slit. I wouldn't say I was taken aback. I was just like, wow, they kind of went all forward on this one.
Yeah, you know, it is interesting because I think people always just think, well, it's Disney, it's not going to have that much on there, but I really think they are trying to expand it a bit more, like when they put Deadpool on here, and the fact we're getting a Deadpool 3, which is going to be rated R, with the MCU brand, is pretty interesting to see how that goes. How many people are going to take their kids to see Deadpool 3 just because they're like, oh, it has Wolverine and it's in the MCU? I think I saw people take their kids to Deadpool 1 when I went too, actually. So people don't really pay attention or to ratings, I guess. But
you know what? I would say I push back a little against that. I think there's a lot more parents out there that are wary of what's in some of these things. So, a buddy of mine that I play poker with, he's a little more liberal in some of these aspects, but his wife is more concerned about what some of the stuff the kids are seeing. So we've talked about some things, and like he's asked me what's in some of the shows or movies, and I've told him like, because his kids are like, I think one's like 10 or 11, you know. So it's one of those like, I don't have kids, I can't really make a solid judgment. Like, I can just tell you what's in it. Someone else I know wanted to take her daughters to go see the Barbie movie. Now, I think one is 6 and the other one's like 11. But a friend of hers seen it. And she said, I guess there is a scene in there where they talk about penises and vaginas. So now she's trying to figure out, like, okay, is this something... She can't take one of her girls to go see it, right? It's got to be, it's all or nothing. So, like, she's trying to make, without seeing it, she's got to make a judgment on, like, do I want to take them to see it? Like, so I think there's more there are some who just don't care, who will take their kids to see anything. Like, in all fairness, there's some who will buy their kids any video game out there as well. Right? So, I mean...
Yeah, when I was growing up, when I was in middle school, I couldn't watch Family Guy. So I think I could only start watching that when I was in high school.
Dude, I remember when The Simpsons first came out.
Oh yeah, my
there were kids in my elementary school
who couldn't watch it.
Middle school. Yeah, whose parents wouldn't let them watch it.
And Simpsons is so tame compared to anything.
Well, at the time, it was a little up there. Married with Children. That was another one. It was, people used to protest that show.
That's crazy.
if you look back at it now, I can understand why like some of the stuff on there. Like you definitely couldn't make it now. Not saying right or wrong.
Well, what I'll say is, like, as somebody that grew up, like, I was able to watch, like, really, Family Guy was the only thing. It was like everything else I was able to pretty much watch. I used to watch The Simpsons with my parents, and like I used to watch Friends and Seinfeld growing up, and any sort of joke that was sexual at nature at times would go right over my head. I had no clue
Yeah, I was gonna
what
say
was
with
going on.
those weren't too bad.
But they're more gay than, like, if you even watch Cheers, right? Like, if you watch Cheers and just, like, 10 years later, Friends comes out or whatever, it's a totally different
Here's one: The
vibe.
Cosby Show. The
Oh,
Cosby Show was a very wholesome show, even though there was an episode or two in there that wasn't so wholesome. Now that we look back at it, but yeah. So I mean, I think there are parents out there who definitely, without a doubt, are trying to look at movies and television and monitor what their kids are watching. I mean, I don't have kids, but I think one of the best things you can have right now is how TVs have the V chip in it, where you can actually set it up where your kids can't watch things over a certain rating. And my ex-wife, her daughter, like she had it set up so she can only watch certain shows, like, you know, certain rated shows. So,
yeah, I used to. Well, that's what I'll have to we'll have to discuss with my wife, I guess, because I have friends, and like my wife was raised a little differently, where, like, you know, couldn't go see PG-13 till like they were 13 type of stuff. For me, I'm more lax on that. Like, look, I don't know what age I'm going to be showing my kids these MCU films and stuff, but it's going to be pretty early because it's whatever. It's superheroes.
Like I'm not saying like take an 8-year-old kid to an R-rated movie.
No.
But I think you have to.
I have seen that with Deadpool. Yeah.
I would say you have to look at what the movie is and find out what's in it, and then make a determination, like, and go from there. You know, but that's why you are the parent. You get to make those decisions, and you know.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Anything else about the episode before we go?
I'm trying to think.
I watched it on Wednesday, so it's a little further back for me.
I watched it this morning. Actually, I'm kind of surprised that all the Skrulls tried to jump Gravik.
Oh, like, yeah, that's right.
I can kind of understand their point, because they're probably a little frustrated and things don't seem to be going their way.
Well, did they know too that he was about to get that blown up anyway? Because, like, he's trying to target his own facility to bring Fury out here, and probably trying to clean up too, getting rid of some of the Skrulls that he thinks. But yeah, he slit that guy in the throat. That's right. That was the guy that came in the first episode, right? So, like, it is.
Yeah, and it was him and a couple of the other guys from the submarine. Yeah, that was the guy with the hat from the first episode that Gaia brought in.
Interesting. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. They, I guess, did not know he had the Super Skrull powers, or maybe they thought they could still overwhelm him with it, but he got out of that and was made pretty quick work of them. And I can understand why they were kind of upset. They probably, you know, none of these people, I don't think, wanted war. They just want a place to live, right? And be themselves. And that's what that place was supposed to be, right? A place where they can be themselves, be in their own skin, and unless they have to go out and do stuff. But now Gravik's also making this bigger push that's probably costing Skrull lives, and you know, they're thinking this guy's just lost it. Just totally lost it. And, you know, making one last coup attempt here before he fully takes over, I guess, is what their hope was.
The guy who plays Gravik is in the Barbie movie.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I think me and my wife are gonna go sometime when she comes back to from her trip. But
here's a question: are you gonna do the full Barbenheimer?
No, I'll
or just
no,
Barbie?
no Barbenheimer for me. Just Barbie. Oppenheimer will be someday down the road.
That
I'll
seems
watch.
like a DVD or Blu-ray type movie.
Yeah,
Um,
it's 3 hours too. I'll
that's what I'm saying. That's one of those where I get it on disc and I can sit in my couch
You can
and
pause
pause it
it. You can
when I
go to the
need to go to the
bathroom when you
bathroom.
need to. You don't have to miss anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
apparently there's some things where people are doing a full Barbenheimer, and then
Oh yeah. I've seen it all over Twitter where like they're like, oh, I'm gonna start with Barbie in the morning, and then we're gonna take lunch break, and then we're gonna go see Oppenheimer. I'm like,
there
that's
was
crazy.
I saw a tweet from BuzzFeed. They do like 20 of the funniest tweets of the week or whatever, and this girl said her and her friends came out of Barbie all dressed in pink, and as they were going through the theater, they ran into a group of dudes coming out of Oppenheimer dressed in their suits, and she said it was like a real Sharks versus Jay kind of moment.
Pink ladies versus the T-Birds. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I could sit in a theater that long. If I did do that, it would have to be broken up. Like, it would have to be a matinee with Barbie at like 10 a.m. And then it would be like a 7 o'clock Oppenheimer start. It would have to be big gaps. I can't do like back to. There's some people literally going in one,
Yeah,
out
and
the
out
net
the other.
into the other, and I
Yep.
can't do that, man. That's too much. Way
I've
too much.
I think I've done 3 movies in one day.
At a theater?
When I was at Fort Meade, in 2011 for training, right? The Anne Arundel Mall.
Oh yeah.
There's the Egyptian theater that's right there.
Yeah, Egyptian. Now it's a Cinemark, but it still has the Egyptian.
Yeah,
theme.
with the Egyptian theme theater, I used to go there all the time on the weekends. So there was a couple weeks where I would do like, I would get up Sunday morning and it would be like 10 or 11 in the morning, and I would, cause you know, get tickets online, and I would go from one to the other, and like cause you get a large popcorn and a drink, you get free refills on them, and then in between movies, I grab like
Refill
a hot dog refill it, grab like a hot dog or something else, and show my phone for the next ticket, go to the next movie.
It amazes me. I always forget that you lived over here at some point. So used to you being Cali.
But it was but most of the time I would do one. Every now and then I would two. I think I only did 3 like one time, but it was also like I came in the morning.
Would you go by yourself?
Yeah,
I love going to the theater by myself. I do.
And then by the time I got out, it was like 7-8 o'clock at night, and it was one of those like the sun's going down. It's like the whole day's gone. It's like, oh man.
That's funny. Yeah, I go to the theater by myself sometimes if it's a movie my wife's not interested in, or if I'm going for a second showing for one of these, MCU films or whatever, if she doesn't want to go again. I quite like it. I first started that in 2017. That was actually the first time I went to a movie by myself, I think, was the Lego Batman movie. Nobody else was really interested in seeing it, so I went by myself, and then I loved it so much. I was like, I'm going to do that more often, and I quite enjoy it because it's not like you're talking to the person next to you anyway, or you shouldn't be. So it's nice.
There's only 2 movies I have seen twice in the theater.
That's it?
Only 2. Avengers, Get Out.
Okay. I haven't seen Get Out, so there you go. That could get added to the list too. But I've seen too many movies in theaters multiple times. The most I've seen a movie was 5 times, and that was No Way Home and The Last Jedi. I saw both of those 5 times in theaters.
Jeebus.
I would have broken it with No Way Home to be 6 times, but I had like a COVID scare. So I wasn't testing positive, my wife was, and I didn't want to risk spreading it to other people, so I just stayed home then. But
I was gonna say, did they see you at the theater and just tell you to get out? Like, no, you've seen this enough.
Yeah. Other than that, I usually see movies at most like 2 or 3 times. I saw Into the Spider-Verse 3 times. and usually I go see twice because I have a small bladder, so I'll usually go at least once or twice in the movie. So then I go a second time to catch the bits that
whatever
I missed.
you didn't. Yeah. Now at home, there's some movies I've seen probably like 100 times. Like Clue.
Yeah.
The movie Clue is probably one of my
that's
all-time
up there.
favorites.
Yeah.
I've seen that way too many times to count. The Princess Bride. I've seen that way too many times to count.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that maybe twice. Princess Bride. I'm not big on that one.
I don't even know what to say. That hurt me to my soul. But I saw that in the theater when it opened.
Really?
I remember going to see that. I was a kid. I was in some sort of summer camp thing for kids, and they took us to the movies, and I wasn't really wanting to go see it because I was like, oh, I want to go outside.
Yeah.
And they knew I liked wrestling. Like, they knew I was a wrestling fan.
There's
Andre the Giant in it. There's a wrestler in it. Okay. And then I fell in love.
That's awesome. If you've heard us talk too much movies, well, get ready. We're having a whole new podcast coming out talking movies in a few weeks. But, yeah. So we'll... You know what? I'll probably put the first episode on this feed as well, so that way if people want to follow us over there. But yeah, so we're ramping up on that. So there's been lots of discussions on what we have and haven't seen. So that's why we've been so into talking movies lately.
And that's what the magical list we're talking about is.
Yes, anytime you hear us talk about a list, that's what it is. So keep an eye for a more official announcement as we go. But all right, we'll cut it off here. Thank you all for watching or listening along with us here. We got one more episode left of Secret Invasion, episode 6. We don't know how long it is. We don't have a title. We don't have a synopsis.
Fury and Gravik finally face each other.
Fury flies from Finland to like just try to keep it all alliteration and be like for the final showdown.
Fury confronts. Fury
that's
confronts
what it is.
Gravik.
3 words. That's what it's gonna be, and we'll see if that's right. That's probably what it's gonna be. And we'll see how it shakes out for Secret Invasion. I've really enjoyed it. I've heard so many people say it's boring. I've had so many people say that because it's not like the comic, it hasn't been good. I much rather this type of show than having it be revealed that Spider-Man was a Skrull for 5 years. Like this for me is doing it a lot more than it is for some, I guess. But I've enjoyed it. I think that having a show based around Fury has been awesome. I don't think he's had too much to do in the MCU, especially lately. So I kind of like having him get reintroduced in this. And it's kind of us being reintroduced to Fury, an older Fury who fell out of it. And now he's, back to himself and he's ready to save the world again. The only way he knows how. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. But if you want to follow us, all of our links are in the show notes. Apparently, while we were on here, they announced that Twitter is rebranding as X or something stupid.
Or the logo, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
You can find us on whatever that platform's called in the show notes. But thank you all for watching and listening. We will catch you next week when we break down the finale of Secret Invasion.